Where do I begin? Okay. Okay. First off, I want to ask you guys your thoughts on this term that I'm not too fond of, but the term is melting pot. What comes to your mind?
Melting pot.
Melting pot. Melting pot of America.
That's nice.
American Asian become American. These are American. Chinese become American. Yeah, yellow outside, white inside.
Like a banana.
Every country of the yellow, then they become one.
So they become one. So they
This is like everybody's.
Okay.
It's a melting pot.
It's a melting pot. Do you
All
think
the cultures come together.
is that positive or negative?
That's positive.
From the surface, right?
I think I actually prefer what we have in Canada, which is that everybody retains their own nationality.
Right.
They're all Canadian. They're different, but together. Everybody retains their own culture.
So,
it's respected,
yeah.
but it's not a melting pot. It's,
Right.
it's next door to the melting pot, but it's not a melting pot. And I think in a way that I prefer that because every culture is then very respected, and even though they have Canadian citizenship, they are not expected to become Canadian, which I think is lovely.
So they don't lose any of their culture. You're kind of adding to the culture. So instead of the melting pot analogy, you can think of a basket full of different vegetables and fruits. Instead of it all blending to one mix, well,
That's delicious. You've got awesome smoothies.
right?
I mean, like,
Yeah, sure.
yeah, I don't know. Like,
Tossed salad.
So like from the social aspect, sociological aspect of culture, when we think of different societies moving because of different reasons, right?
Yeah.
And we all kind of have to mingle and get along with each other. And some societies, they have their own way of dealing with it. So some people, societies will move to a new country, and then they'll just stick with their own kind,
Yeah.
their own race.
Exactly.
And that's what we call like a pluralistic society or pluralistic ethnicity. They decided to become their own like ethnic enclave. But on the other side of the spectrum, you have people who move in and just dive right into the dominant culture. So, and then they just lose their culture, and we call those like the term is assimilation.
Right.
So either you're pluralistic, keep your own heritage, or you're assimilated.
But what do you mean pluralistic is you keep your own heritage and you adopt the new culture as well?
Well, that's a little bit of a mixture.
Yeah.
That's acculturation.
Yes, but how is that pluralistic if you just retain your own heritage in the new country or your adopted country?
Yeah, if you look up the definition,
Yeah.
depending on which field it's in,
Yeah.
the term that for
I see.
right.
In other words, this is an archaeological term. An anthropological term. Pluralism in this way.
Sociological.
Sociological, not
Yeah.
anthropological.
Yeah, it's basic. Yeah. So
Okay.
so pluralistic societies, there are many societies, ethnicities living together,
Right.
but you have your own blocks.
They are their own.
You have
I
your own
see what you're
blocks,
saying.
right?
Okay.
So then for your support and your security, you kind of have that strong.
There's a real major negative aspect to that, right? In terms of language.
Mm-hmm.
You know, right, what that is?
Well, a lot of it is they're not mingling.
Right.
Yeah.
They also never look like. I know tons of people in Montreal whose grandparents came with them from places like Venezuela and Korea and North Africa, and their grandparents lived in their own enclave in these pluralistic communities on their own blocks. They never learned English. They never learned French.
They went there also in the heart. That's one of the things what I've done. But like when I walk through New York, for example, then everyone speaks English.
Yeah.
And everyone has their culture. Like when I I go to the Italian neighborhood, that really got a pizza. So I love that way,
Right.
but I can't see that in the Netherlands because people stay always then to their own language.
Very interesting.
Like there are people here in this city, which
Yeah.
meant in the China quarters, 80, 90 years old, born here,
Born in Vietnam?
born in Vietnam, cannot speak, and they can speak like maybe a handful of words.
In Vietnamese. And they
They
manage,
speak pure Cantonese.
right, they manage in Cantonese because they stayed in that enclave, yeah?
Exactly.
But if they have to sorry,
No, it's okay.
I'm distracting, I'm sorry, but I always wonder, like, if you have to venture into the city, and you have to venture into the city on your own,
Exactly.
what do you do? Like, you
Well,
can't.
everything is there for them. That's the problem. I mean, not the problem, but that's one of the reasons why. It's like they have everything they need to survive. All the businesses are in Chinese.
Here,
Yeah.
all the businesses are in Chinese?
In that district.
Oh, in that district.
There's actually 3
But
districts.
what if you,
6 and 11. They
5, 6, and
they
11?
all.
But what if you have to go to District 1? Do you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
don't know English and you don't know Vietnamese. What are you going to do?
Well, for them, there's no need to. You need to venture out of the district. That's what's kind of weird.
Very,
I have a family member who's 82 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Just
just think of that.
yeah.
Think of living your life like that.
Expect teachers to do it too much.
Sure. Yeah. They go to like English speaking bars and just
Right.
mingle.
Never know.
Yeah.
Well, first they do that
And
because
they think they're being so
realistic.
embracing of something.
Right.
But I think that partially when I'll shut up right after this. I'm just wondering if, because we're going to talk about this when we get into sociolinguistics, you look for the familiar when you are thrust into the unfamiliar. So at the beginning of your foray into the foreign culture as an international school teacher, I'm sure you look for a language in which you can converse your home language just to feel comfortable, like you can find your place in this new environment. But I think you're talking about afterwards, but it goes on for a really, really long time.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, with this warmer activity, I'm trying to get you guys to think of societies
Yes.
and how they can be on one extreme where they're keeping their own traditions, or they can assimilate into the dominant
Right.
social structures. But the process of adopting the dominant structure is called acculturation. So, for example, if let's say I was born in the U.S., right? I'm coming here to Vietnam. If I'm acculturating to Vietnamese society, I will still respect my views as an American. However, I will begin to adopt certain Vietnamese ways of it could be like celebration, it could be food, it could be the whole umbrella of culture. So with this model, the main I guess underlying theory is that Sh*Shumann asserted that the more that you acculturate to the target language, the society of target language, the better you'll learn. The better you'll learn as a second language learner. Is that correct?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
As an additional language learner, because it might not be second, right?
Right.
Yeah, but I think that like it just stands to reason. That
Yeah.
the more that you immerse yourself, the more that you are open to this new culture that you're immersed in. Yeah.
You're finding out like the social norms and
Right.
like all kinds of different things.
Right.
But I mean, I'll give you a little bit about the history. So it's J.Shumann. He began this model, the acculturation model, as a result of observing an English language learner. His name was Alberto. He was 33 years old. He was from Costa Rica and living in Boston, where many people were speaking Portuguese. And in Boston, Alberto lived in a Portuguese-speaking neighborhood and had limited contact with English speakers.
Right.
So, which resulted in him not being very successful in learning target language.
Right.
So J.Shumann explained that Alberto's limited acquisition of English was basically because of the social and psychological distance from L2 speakers.
Right.
So social distance is associated with the actual contact between the actual contact available between the two cultures.
Yeah.
And psychological distance is represented to the extent which the learner wanted to become closely adapted to the dominant culture. So the more you want to be like the dominant culture, the more I want to be Vietnamese.
Yeah.
The psychological distance is shorter, because I can acquire more language.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And there are certain things that have to be overcome before you can do that. But that's the answer to so many things. Is acculturation.
Right.
Or acculturation. So how do you?
The important thing with acculturation, I think, is to be proud of where you're from, but yet respect others and also try and get what you can from them. And
Yeah, I agree.
not the melting pot, but the basket.
Yeah.
Just put it all together. Yeah. And for some classroom implications,
Yes.
to promote acculturation in the classroom, basically it's having a culturally responsive classroom. And that's you're respectful of all cultures, you teach all cultures, whatever cultures your students are coming from, you try to have a lesson a week or something like that, or have them share. Make it a point in your class that you're not going to tolerate any kind of misbehavior or making fun of any other culture. Yeah, just make that like on day one.
Bullying.
Yeah, none of that based on culture.
Yeah, not have anything. That's not one. Yeah.
And don't focus information on holidays and major events. That's all great, but include it as many aspects of the culture as you can, not just the big events, but get in there. Really study for yourself as a teacher the culture of your students. That's basically culture.
Thank you.
All
right.
Thank you.